But what designating cartel organizations allows us to do is deploy the full resources of the United States military to engage in serious border enforcement.
U.S. Vice President drops bombshell. Will the U.S. invade Mexico? Amid the growing tensions, JD Vance's big warning to Mexico. Will U.S. use military force against its neighbor? JD Vance makes big announcement during border patrol. U.S. Vice President JD Vance has issued a big warning to Mexico amid rising tensions, hinting that Washington remained ready to take military action against the gangs operating in Mexico. During his visit to the U.S.-Mexico border, Vance stated, "Mexico must take this job seriously," signaling concerns about handling of border security. Vance is the most senior figure in Trump's administration to visit the border, however, said there was no talk of U.S. military forces crossing into Mexico to tackle the gangs at this moment, which he said were now classified alongside the so-called Islamic State group as terrorists.
So look, I'm not going to make any announcements about any invasions of Mexico here today. The president has a megaphone, and of course he'll speak to these issues as he feels necessary. But what designating cartel organizations allows us to do is deploy the full resources of the United States military to engage in serious border enforcement. Of course, the president is going to make the determination about how we deploy those forces, but our hope is that Mexico takes this job seriously. We don't want to have negative relationships with the Mexican government. We want the Mexican government to help itself, but also in the process to help the American people by taking these organizations seriously. It's going to destabilize the entire country of Mexico, the entire government, if they don't take it more seriously. We're hopeful that they will. And if they don't, then of course, we'll figure out what to do
Vance
from there.
also said the administration's focus on stamping out illegal immigration and on designating gangs as terrorist organizations was aimed primarily at stemming the flow of drugs into the United States. Vance's comments came after Trump used a joint session of Congress to rail against what he called the open border policies of former President Joe Biden and issued a blood-curdling warning over criminal gangs operating in Mexico. Remember, Vance was speaking in Eagle Pass, a major crossing point between Mexico and the United States, where he had traveled with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. Hegseth, who last week authorized the deployment of 3,000 troops to the southern border, hailed a whole-of-government approach to stemming illegal immigration, which he said had reduced unauthorized crossings in the area from 1,500 a day to 30.